Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be my January wrap-up. I read 6 books in January and loved a couple of them and really liked a couple more, so it was just a great reading month. Right, Comet? So without further ado, let's just get into all the books I read. First, I kicked off the new year by reading Fairy Tale by Rebeccah Rodriguez. If you don't know, Rebeccah is a fellow author-tuber. I'm going to leave her linked down below because I love her so much. She is so great. Also, if you can't tell, I do consider her a friend of mine, so keep that in mind. I tried not to be biased, but this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it's a lot more than that because there's so many different unique spins on things and there's so much other stuff layered on top of it. But at its core, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But I really enjoyed this. I did give it a 7.5 out of 10, but that's mostly because I'm not a huge romance fan and this is a very romantic book, so I liked it and I can appreciate that those parts were well done. I just personally don't like that type of thing, so I couldn't rate it higher. One thing though I want to mention, look at this cover. Like, this cover is gorgeous, and I was trying to find a way to explain it, but this cover sums up the book so well. Like, the look of it and the color scheme and like just every little detail about it, I think really just summarizes the book and the feel of it. So if you like this cover, read the book. My favorite thing about it though was definitely the magic and just how magical everything felt. It was one of those almost unreliable narrator because the magic was so like intense and you weren't really sure what was reality and what was magic, and I really like that kind of thing, so I really enjoyed those scenes. But yes, Fairy Tale by Rebeccah Rodriguez kicked off my year with a 7.5 out of 10. The second book I read was David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I love Charles Dickens so much. I ended up giving this an 8.5 out of 10. It's essentially just the story of David Copperfield's life. It's really hard to explain it, but it's basically just him growing up and going about his life and just how he experiences things and his ups and his downs. Honestly, Charles Dickens is the king of writing poor little awkward boys thrust into big worlds, if that makes sense. David Copperfield, Pip, like, I love watching them grow up and see that the world isn't as small as they thought it was, and I really like the way that Charles Dickens does that. I usually really like his sense of humor, and this book definitely had some funny moments, but this was a lot more emotional than a lot of the other Charles Dickens books that I've read, and I liked that a lot. I cried a lot. There's a couple death scenes in here. I'm not going to give anything away, but like, a book this big that spans someone's entire lifetime, like, obviously somebody's gonna die, but the death scenes in here, I cried, I think, at all of them. While I do like watching David Copperfield himself grow up, and even though he's a great protagonist for that, I really loved all of the supporting characters, and this book has about a bazillion characters, but I really liked just seeing everybody else that comes in and out of his life, and even though a lot of the other characters are mostly flat, but they're still interesting enough that they make a big impact on him and they make a big impact on the reader, and if you like Charles Dickens, I highly recommend this book. The third book I read was Say the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. This one's hard to rate because it's not a novel, it's a reference book, help book, writing craft book. I did end up giving it a 9.5 out of 10 though. This book has been so helpful, and I know that everybody on OtherTube always gushes about this book, but I really like it. I've seen in the Save the Cat beat sheet before and just the beats, and I wasn't sure if it was really worth buying this book because I already have the beat sheet. Why do I need, an entire book on top of that? But honestly, the book has so much extra value to it. Not only does it obviously break down the beats and really explain things, but it gives so many examples. It can be really hard with other type of writing formulas, we'll say, to fit every single story into that, because so many stories, there's a billion different stories and there's so many different unique ideas, and trying to fit each one into the same boxes is really difficult sometimes. But this book really breaks it down and gives you so many different examples and examples for different types of stories. And I don't necessarily mean genres, like science fiction does this, this, and this, and fantasy does this, this, and this, and romance does this, this, and this, although it does touch on that. But for genres, they really have type of story. Like, I think one of them is just called like Dude with a Problem. There's like a buddy love. It really breaks it down in a way that helps you find how your story can be incorporated into the beat sheet instead of just saying, here's the formula, have fun. It's really helping you put your exact story into that and telling you all the different ways to do it and how to prioritize things. And it's a very, very helpful book. I really, really loved it. I'm currently going through it again. There's a couple spots that I've tabbed up that I'm currently working on, but I found this super helpful. And also, one other little thing to note is the sense of humor in this book is really funny. Like, it's not just a dry, this is how you write a novel, do this and then this. Like, there's a lot of like jokes, and just the narration style is really fun too. So it was fun to read, and it's, I think, going to be very useful for my writing. So 9.5 out of 10, just because I don't believe that you can write a craft book a 10 out of 10. It just seemed a bit much for me. It's a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, but 9.5 out of 10. The next book I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is so hyped, and I really wasn't expecting it to live up to those expectations because it was a lot of hype. I'm gonna very briefly go over it because this book is everywhere, so you guys have probably heard of it. If not, Evelyn Hugo is a reclusive Hollywood actress. Monique is an interviewer person who for some reason gets called to interview her. It's Evelyn Hugo's life story. She's been married 7 times. Ta-da! I expected to at least like it because if it's that overhyped, it has to at least be decent, probably. But I was not expecting to fall in love with it, but I gave this a 9.5 out of 10. And I am so in love. I'm in love with Evelyn Hugo. I'm in love with everything, and I actually listened to this on audiobook. I put a hold of it on my library like 3 months ago, but obviously it's a very popular book and they only have 1 audiobook copy, so it took a while to get it, and then it became available at like 11 o'clock at night, so I figured I would at least start listening to it because I really wasn't expecting to fully love it, which is why I didn't commit to actually physically reading the book. And I stayed up all night until I think it finished at like 8 in the morning. And I immediately went online and bought a copy because holy cow. I absolutely loved this. There were so many times where I like laughed. There were so many times that I cried. There's one scene I bawled, like messy, ugly, giant mess bawling. Comet actually had to come check on me because I was doing a puzzle in the basement and I was just making a big old mess of my face. And a Comet came up and started licking my face because she couldn't understand why I was so upset. But it's just because I love Evelyn Hugo. But yes, this was such an amazing book. One thing that I was worried about with this book was I thought it was going to get kind of repetitive because I thought it was going to be the same thing. She gets married, she gets divorced. She gets married, she gets divorced. She gets married, she gets divorced. But it really wasn't. Every husband in every situation was different, and it never got boring or repetitive at all. Also, people have been mentioning a lot that she feels so real and that it's hard for them not to imagine that she's not a real person and all this stuff. And I thought that that was just like random gushing. But seriously, she feels so real, and not only just in the way that they portray like her ups, her downs, her struggles, her strength, like just being so layered, but they talk about, because one of her big roles was in Little Women, and there's a Little Women remake coming up, and I was watching somebody talk about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I've never seen that movie. I should watch one of the versions because it's been done so many times. And I was like, oh, I want to watch the one with Evelyn Hugo in it. Evelyn Hugo's not real, which is heartbreaking because she should be real, because I love her. I cannot wait to reread this again and just re-experience everything all over again, which is weird because I'm not someone that rereads books very often, like almost never. So the fact that I'm already excited to reread this is really just a testament to how amazing it is. So I'll stop gushing now, but seriously, if you're one of the people that's been holding out on this book, you should just try it. After finishing Evelyn Hugo, I was really nervous about the next book that I was going to read because I was worried that compared to that, it would be really hard to, live up to that. But fear not, because my next book that I read was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the Shades of Magic series, and this was another 9.5 out of 10. I love this series so much. I'm not going to tell you about this book specifically because it's the sequel, so spoilers for the first one. The series is basically about 4 parallel universes, alternate dimensions. It's very magical, and the 4 different worlds have 4 different levels of magic. One of them's dead because it's been corrupted by magic. One of them's magic is dying, one of them has no magic, one of them has lots of magic, and there's a specific type of magician that can move between the worlds, but aside from that, everybody's stuck in their own world. and it's just a grand old time. I really like the characters so much in this. Delilah Bard is this spunky little scoundrel who I absolutely adore, and Kel is the other main character. He's the magician that can travel between the worlds, and he is just, he's like that dark, broody guy, but not in an annoying way, and I just love the way that they interact. Like, they're just such great buds, you know, like they can joke and laugh, and they're just like, buddyship is just so great. I love it so much. I really love so many of their sense of humor and just how spunky so many of the characters are. The first one, I didn't really like the ending as much because I found it was just a little bit too convenient, and it just, I don't know, it seemed to just be too easy almost. But this one is definitely not falling into the same trap. This one was so amazing. I'm currently reading the third one. I'm about 100 pages in, so far so good for that one, but I love this series. I love so many characters. I love the feel of the magic. I love how vivid the worlds are, and it's so good. I really love it. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10. Unfortunately though, my month ended off on a not so good note. The final book I read was Soulstealers by Jacqueline Rohrbach. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 10. I really had a hard time enjoying this book. I did receive a free copy of this ebook in exchange for a review, and unfortunately I really didn't enjoy it. The premise was really interesting. It's about a girl who can bring a different type of magic into the world, and it sounds really cool, and honestly the first chapter is so good, and the way it ends is just so like intense, and I was really excited, but for me it just fell really flat after that. I found the world building in this basically non-existent. I'm the kind of person that I really like world building, and especially harder magic systems. Like, I want to understand, and I couldn't tell you anything about this world. Apparently the palace is floating and the world underneath is dead, but I don't understand how, and I don't understand what they did to cause it, and I don't understand what they're doing to fix it, and I don't understand the magic system and how it works. I know it draws on life, but I don't understand it, and just, I couldn't picture the world, I couldn't understand what was going on, and it was written in a way that I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like vague enough to be intriguing, but because you never got explained in the end, there was no payoff to it, so it was really just frustrating. Also, none of the characters had any chemistry. The romance in this, I could not stand. It's completely unnecessary. I can't believe it at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's just really awkward to read. Like, I don't know. It's not well written, and I really would have preferred it not to be there. It doesn't help that all of the characters felt really flat and boring, and there was nothing to them. Also, nobody was likable. And not just in the way that they were unlikable, just in the fact that I was neutral and couldn't care less about anybody. Also, I couldn't figure out most of their motivations because some of them, they were just going back and forth, and I didn't understand, and I couldn't understand why they made the decisions they did, and I realized while I was writing this review, and I don't mean for this to sound mean, but Wildcat by J.P. Harker, everything that I loved about that book, this book was lacking. Like, I couldn't understand the characters' motivations, nothing made sense, the world building was non-existent, I couldn't understand their motives. Like, this book was essentially that book's opposite. There is one other thing that I want to mention in this, because I heard that there was a good representation in this. Obviously from the cover, the main character is dark-skinned, and they do mention that a couple times throughout the novel, but it was also saying it had bisexual rep and asexual aromantic rep. And I just want to touch on that because I don't quite agree with it. So the main character is bisexual. Her main love interest is a woman, but there's actually one line, it's just written twice in two different parts of the books, but I'm pretty sure it's like the exact same line. But she's talking about this boy from her past, and she just mentions casually, I used to have a crush on him and her both. And obviously that is bisexual rep, but it doesn't come across at all in any of the stories, any of the actions, it's just a quick line that they threw in. And same with the asexual aromantic rep. I actually have the line written down here. There's one very quick moment when a character kisses another one, and then they realize that they misread the body language and that she didn't want to be kissed, so they apologize. And then the character says, I'm not attracted to anyone. I don't want to kiss a boy or a girl. And while that is technically asexual or aromantic rep, It's really one quick throwaway line that has no effect on anything and is never mentioned again. Like, it feels like the author just kind of threw those 2 lines in just that they could say that there was representation when there really isn't. And I don't know, it just feels wrong to me because it feels like it's just being thrown in there so that you can say that there's rep when there really isn't. And even though there is, like, I don't know, I'm curious to see people that actually consider themselves part of these groups, how they felt about the representation, because I feel like it was just completely very badly done, but I'm not part of either of those groups, so take what I say with a grain of salt. That's just how I felt. But I think that if you're going into this book because you heard about the rep, don't waste your time. So there we go. Those were the 6 books that I read this month. I'm really happy with it though, because 5 of those books I really liked. Unfortunately, it ended on a sour note, but I've already started reading a book that I'm loving so far, so it's not as bad as it sounds. But I read some really great books, and I'm already worried about my favorite books of 2020 video because we'll see, but I read some really good books this month. So I guess that is all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please click the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my reading, and my writing, and my cats, and whatever else I film. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!